you've checked off it's not a special education issue, if you've checked off it's not autism, if you've checked off this child truly looks fearful, is there just 3 things that the officer can say that can reaffirm and help his brain to be okay, that I just need to do my job? And maybe the answer is no, but I'm courageous and creative enough to think that there's some middle ground that still is in compliance with the law.
Well, my question was, as I watched everything going on, having grown up close to Memphis, I took extra attention in it. And it seemed like one of the issues was whether or not people had their body cams on. And so, Chief, for instance, my question is, do all the officers here have them?
We do not have a single body camera. We applied for the federal grant last year. We are woefully behind the times there. But I was just talking to Major Wallace before we started. And again, going back to the difference in policing. When I started in the police department 15 years ago, it was, what, is my word not good enough? I don't need a body camera to watch over it. I'm telling you what happened. To now, the entire police department, I mean, other than maybe a couple just old school set in their ways, not going to change their thinking, that are still there, want body cameras. I want you to see that I'm doing things right. I want it to be proven. So we applied for the federal DOJ grant last year. We were denied. We've applied, or in the process of applying again, but we're going to try to expand that out to go with the prosecutor's office. We also need a way to be able to submit that evidence digitally and electronically to the prosecutor's office. So we're in. That is one of the 2 big projects with the Independence Police Charitable Foundation. That's one of their goals for 2023. The chamber has worked on that as well to support that initiative. So it's out there, and there's no resistance or obstruction. It's just the funding.
And I'll tell you from Kansas City, Kansas side, it is one of the best tools that we have for 2 reasons. It protects the individual, and it also protects the officer. Because there's been, we were having this conversation, there's been several times when allegations were made, where we pulled the video up, and it turns out, no, that didn't happen. Or, yes, that happened, and this is what's going to take place. So body cameras are great.
All right, we have a question on the floor here.
I was just going to say, is there anything that the folks here as general members of the public can do to help further that effort in getting body cams?
I guess Representative Sauls and he has been largest. In fact, we've got a bill coming up this week in committee to honor Officer Blaze Madrid Evans. So we're incredibly thankful for that. So just lobbying or contacting your representatives. I know, this has been a full court press behind the scenes. I just was meeting with one of the members of the Public Safety Oversight Committee who's trying to get in with Representative Cleaver. So, and it's just money. I mean, that's really what it is. It's not a lack of dragging feet. It's not a lack of city support. The city has been, if you've watched the city council meetings, they have been fully on board. It's just, where do you put that budgetary dollar? And for us, it's about $1.5 million to fully implement that program with all 200. No, $1.5 million. If we have a $45 million body camera program, I'm retiring to Florida somewhere. I don't know what's going on, but things have gone terribly well.
Well, and you have to keep in mind, something that you have to keep in mind, it's not just the body cameras, but the storage and the protection of that evidence. So it is very expensive.
And the staffing too that goes along with that open action. For us, it's 3 additional staff positions to deal with the open records requests and everything else that comes in that.
That's right.
I do have a couple of questions. Number one, if anyone else has a question, I don't want to.
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Number one, I recently saw, I think it was someone texted me or said there's some kind of weed tax coming. Is that, am I too early? I don't know if I'm too early. Is that something, because I know we're focused on getting a new facility, police department facility. Could that be helpful to the campus?
Yeah, absolutely. So the marijuana tax that's before the voters, April the 4th, is the council has targeted that towards public safety facilities and operations. Now the discussion, if you go back and look at that, at this point in the ordinance crafted that was around using that as development funds and seed money for a new police, public safety campus, which we desperately need. That will be obviously including in technology and things like that, but once that is done, or if that effort should pass, but the larger GO bond to fund that should not be successful, which I would hope would not be the case, then at that point, yes, those funds are there for operational needs, which body cameras would be an operational need.
As far as tier, I'm just trying to pick your brain, is that primary for you?
Yes, as
Body
far
cameras?
as body cameras are, yeah, but I don't know that we would need that marijuana tax funds to be able to do that with the funding mechanisms, just this coalescing of other funding options between grants and the big, as Mayor Wallace can say, the big problem is just getting it done. Then sustaining it from there, there's maintenance agreements and other things that will take care of like for us, there's several vendors that will replace all the equipment in there at 3 years and then again at 5 years. So you have, and then warranty it in between. So the body camera breaks, you send it back, they send it in. So the infrastructure and the backbone, once the initial seed funding is there on the back end. We can use the use tax that's there currently to support that. It's just getting that $1.5 million payment up front to say we gotta get all this equipment.
All right, people, so look forward to that, learning more about that. My last question, and then we'll get to Ms. Salinas. I heard you speaking, and I heard Hobart speaking.
So your answer there? I didn't hear the crunch afterwards, so
So I've been pulled over a few times. One time, the officer actually ended up apologizing to me, and I would love to meet that man. My wife was so upset and scared, she filmed the interaction. And the man came back and he shook my hand and he said, you know what? I'm gonna be the first one to make it right. When I'm wrong, I'm sorry. And he gave me my stuff back and we went on. The other time, I was really nervous. I think I called you after this. I called my uncle because I was just so unsure. I just felt so taken. I didn't feel whole. I felt unsafe. The most important people in my world were with me. It was my wife, my mother, and my year-old daughter. The officer, I'm a pastor for those of you who may not know, my church was on 23rd Street at the time. The officer pulled up on the parking lot diagonal, pointed his brights at us, and we're stunned. Because we're about to pull off, and we're like, what just happened? It's dark. We don't really know, honestly, who it is. So when we find out it's an officer, he's at my window asking me to get out of the car. And he said, I need to talk to you for about 5 minutes. I got a call on domestic violence. I understand that my rights are not to say no, but please understand that that was a time where unarmed black men were being killed, and it was just almost every other month. It was crazy. I could not find the courage to get out of the car. The most courageous thing I could have done that night was to stay with my family. And I did that. And he left. He never came back. He never asked the ladies a question. I told him, I said, officer, these are the most important women in my life right here. I cannot get out of this car. And he left. And so for me, I guess I could have gotten out of the car, but Lord knows, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And so in those situations, I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Let me pose it to you. Let me flip the script and pose it to you differently. So, what happens if, taking that story as a premise of domestic violence, that's what we're there for, okay? What happens if you had a gun in the car, which you didn't, but let's say you did, and you were holding your family, you and your wife were having a discourse with the kids in the car, and you over splitting, she was going to leave you and take the kids, and you said, no, you're not, over my dead body, you're not getting out of this car. And we just walk away, and then all of a sudden we have a Lindsay Porter, Lindsay Porter situation. So again, it's tough. There's no right or wrong answer, but if you get out and you haven't, and I understand I understand the hesitation piece of that and the fear that goes with that. But if you get out and you haven't done anything wrong, I know that doesn't sit well necessarily with everybody. If you haven't done anything wrong, we're going to get to that right answer. And if you have been wrong, whether you haven't been treated appropriately, again, there's that recourse after the fact.
Unless you're dead.
And
Which-
you're correct, and you're right. I can't.
Meredith was thinking, my son could have gotten the death penalty for that traffic stop.
And I hate that. There's not an excuse for that, but I can tell you statistically though too, that is, and it doesn't make it right. You put a name, a Tyree Nichols, you put a George Floyd, those are lives that are lost that are never able to come back. But I will tell you that there are 1 million police officers that are out there every day doing this job that have contacts 5, 10, 20 times a day, and the amount of lethal, unjustified lethal force is less than 1,000 of 1%. So I know that doesn't bring a life back, but the chances are so small and minute that I'm asking you to trust in our professionalism, trust in the training that we have, trust in the fact that we are full of public servants and we want to do the right thing. We crave to do the right thing, and let's rebuild those relationships.
So as a board member, I think this very dialogue needs to be heard, particularly by Black and brown homeless. I mean, and really all students, but I think that the bridge that is missing is this audience directly with law enforcement for those who are up and coming with narratives that counter that. They're encountering visuals, their parents are at home trying to give them this protective, preventative information. And frankly, I just don't know that we have a system, a school system, that is willing to set a courageous table to have this conversation, and it is overdue. And I just think we could offset and prevent, even in schools, and some of the disciplinary action that happens as a result. If our youth would hear this directly from the officers, and whether it's a forum like this just for youth, there's an opportunity that's being missed. And I would just like to see more school leadership in the table in facilitating this very conversation directly with those youth.
Definitely something I am strongly interested in. Ms. Lennis.
You know, here in Independence, I can say this, since 1850, okay? And from working in City Hall, we have got the best way of getting out our information, the utility bill, okay? Just like you had the city scene or whatever, to tell the parents, mainly, this is what the police expect from your child. Hold the parents accountable. You know what's supposed to happen or not, because you got it right there. So sit down as a parent and talk to your child about this is what you should do. I mean, everybody's not gonna do that. Everybody's not gonna do that. But put it out there. We got a vehicle to do that. Already, that's our postage and everything. It's free to us. Maybe this can calm some of this down.
You know, real quickly to your point, we did some really great communication things during COVID. May was phenomenal. I think we did some webinars, we did some Zoom things over lunch hour. Like, I would love to see, you know, Chief, you, and maybe a diverse group of students from some of either the BSUs, or, and it could be a wide variety. They don't all have to be students of color, but record it. Like, that would go viral. Our youth would love to watch something like that. And if it's live on Facebook, I'm sure they would tune into. But that dialogue, even in a safety of a recorded session, I think there's just some low-hanging fruit that we could pursue to get that word out.
I think it's relationship.
Committed.
And I think it's relationship too. It's important that you have relationship with your police department. I remember I grew up in Wyandotte County until I was in the 6th grade, and officers would come by my great grandmother's neighborhood, and they would give us baseball cards. Like, they would talk to us. They would build relationships. And so when I saw them in communities or in the community, I didn't have the initial fear or concern because there was a relationship. And I think do we still do baseball cards? I mean, is that something that still happens?
We do. They're not the baseball cards that you remember that actually have the officers' picture and stats. Now we actually just get outdated Royals baseball cards.
Very much outdated.
I would go with him. Like, when I was growing up, whatever happened to Officer Freeman? You remember Officer Freeman?
He's still here. You can see him in the neighborhood. council meetings.
No, there used to be a police officer named Officer Friend. His name is to drive to our neighborhood, like you said, to give out baseball cards on 4th of July, give them little packs of firecrackers and stuff. He used to love Officer Friend. That's why I remember talking about we grew up respecting the police officers all the way up. Because, like I said, up to like the late 80s and 90s, the police officers in Independence were pretty good. They were your friends. They knew who you were. If you got in trouble, they go like, oh, get your butt home before I tell your parents.
Before I tell your parents.
So Officer Friendly is
Before I
still,
tell your parents. That's incredible.
Officer Friendly is still alive, and he comes, he's 93 years old, and he comes to the city council meetings on Monday night. His name's Al, and I get to see him every Monday night.
Yeah, but my thing was, that's when we grow up, but then like after the 90s, like the late 80s, all of a sudden the police department just kind of changed.
Yeah.
We have two questions back here. After Carol Salinas, we have two back here.
You know, I'll say to Chief and anybody else in here, the main problem I see with this situation is fear. The officers don't know what to expect when they